Hello and welcome to EUphoriaCon, a one-day online-only TTRPG convention designed to bring together diverse TTRPG creatives here locally in Europe and build community across borders. You can support and follow Euphoria on all our socials listed below. My name's Markus, pronouns are he, him. I am a pale Caucasian male with dark hair, gray streaks in my hair, a beard, glasses, and today wearing my Black Community Games t-shirt for this special panel about anxiety. I am not alone here, however. I am accompanied by three fantastic people who I will let them introduce themselves. Just gonna pass it around and I'm gonna start off with Gloria. Hello, introduce yourself.
Hi, Gloria. Is my name. I am a fat Mexican Filipino woman, and I'm wearing a navy washed out, faded navy polka dot dress. I'm excited to be here. That's all I need to say.
Amazing. Chloe, hello. Tell us about yourself.
Hello, I'm Chloe or Chloe, either is fine. I use she, they pronouns. I'm a white femme presenting person with short brown curly hair, and today I'm wearing a sort of grey t-shirt. It's got some butterflies on it and a camouflage jacket with a whole load of pins and badges. Yeah, I'm also very excited to be here.
Absolutely. And we also have Ren here. Ren, hello. Tell us about yourself.
Hi, I'm Ren. I go by Mask Ren on the internet. My pronouns are they, them. I am a Black non binary individual with short cropped hair, currently wearing a purple and black striped long sleeve top and a short spiked necklace.
Amazing. Happy to have all of you here. And what are we here for today? Well, we are here to talk about anxiety at the table, why you are not terrible and your friends not liars. We are going to talk about something that many TTRPG players will be familiar with, which is anxiety within the TTRPG context, the anxiety that you might feel as a facilitator, as a player, but also the anxiety you might feel based on your background and who you are when you join a new table and the likes. We're going to speak from our personal experiences and hope that with this panel, you know that you're not alone with your anxious thoughts, and we're trying to help you out with our own insights and our own tips. Important disclaimer before we go into depth. We are talking specifically about anxiety within the TTRPG context, how we experience it as players, facilitators, and people. Anxiety, however, is also a very big term, and there are people who struggle seriously with anxiety and anxious thoughts, and which has them being limited in their day-to-day life. If you experience anxiety in that kind of form, where you feel yourself limited and restrained within your day-to-day life, we suggest that you contact your local medical professionals and seek any kind of assistance you can help you can find for that as well. If, however, you're here for the TTRPG part and you want to know about how you can deal with your anxious thoughts, you're at the right place. So, I would like all of us together, if you're all okay with it, to imagine something. We're role players, we're good at imagining. So, how about we briefly imagine a scene? Imagine you're with your home game, your group, whatever kind of group you play role playing games with. You're in a session and you're slowly getting towards the end of that session. Whether you're the GM or a player, you know that you're working towards the climax of that session. You're fully in it. Your head is fully focused on the story that's developing, on the things that happen in the game. And then at one point, you hear those words that wrap up the session. Something like, and we'll pick up from there next time. And right after those words, the first thing that happens at your table is complete silence. How does that make any of you feel if you imagine this situation?
I felt that in my soul just now.
I think we all did.
We're make-believing make-believe right now, and I feel sick.
It's too vivid, Marcus, please.
Not a nice feeling.
Yeah, no, it's that the blank canvas. It just makes you go like, imagine all of the things that could have been wrong with things. You're like, oh, having no feedback at all. like
Exactly.
what could have gone wrong.
You
And
can't tell if there's a storm there waiting or just everyone's trying to be too nice and not say something.
yeah,
Right. Yeah, I think this is a scene that is very familiar to all of us and also other people at a game, especially because you suddenly have that winding down, that abrupt end of a session, and it's followed up by not a direct response. Speaking from my experience, that's like the number one source of post-session anxiety that I experience. And it might be also the most common anxiety that many other players feel. And looking at your reactions, all of you are familiar with that kind of scene, with that kind of event happening. If these kind of things happen at your table, if you feel that after a session already those anxious thoughts are creeping in, um, have you, over the years of all of you playing tabletop RPGs, have you developed any kind of techniques or tricks to deal with them? Anything that works for you in that moment?
I think for me, like, and this might be more of me being like a more like on the neurodivergent side of one like being direct thing. But I have found that the easiest way to deal with those sorts of things is literally just to ask and see how was that, everybody, especially if you're the one running the game. Um, and just ask for feedback, or even if not in that more direct way, but just having that space to chat about it afterwards. Um, because especially, and this is a very British culture thing as well, we're very polite. And so, people don't really like to say how they're feeling and things. And so just having that time, and just when you're with your, like, I'm assuming in this context as well, you're with friends and people that you like. So, there are people that you chat with, and it's just, even just 5 minutes is enough to kind of diffuse that tension of, um, the like imaginary things that could have gone wrong. Um, I had something else to say there and it completely went out of my brain. So someone else go.
Me. I immediately go thoughts, and then if no one says anything after that, I'll just start pinpointing things I really enjoy that other people were doing, just to keep conversation going. Like if there was a really fun moment that somebody was a part of, I'll just sing everyone's praises. Because when I'm GMing, which is rare, I don't really do it on stream, but I definitely do it for like my home games. Um, I have no issue just being like thoughts, and then like starting to talk about how amazing everyone is at the table. Um, I that silence is awful, and that was too visceral, Marcus. So, no, in a good way.
I think for me, and I've had to like strong arm some of my players into it. But a thing that I've found, and I think we'll talk about tools later, is stars and wishes are really good for that, because it makes people pay attention during the game because at the end of this we're gonna come to you and call on you and you have to say something nice about the other people at the table, um, but also it just kind of eases the pressure for everyone because everyone is going to have something good to say about a thing that happened in the game. And it's not just me fishing for compliments, but also just knowing that your players are engaging with the story and knowing that the players are engaging with each other, I think like helps bring people closer together in that way. Um, so I found that Stars and Wishes, even though I didn't know what it was a few years ago, has really helped a lot with easing some of that.
That's a really good segue there, Ren, talking about tools, stars and wishes, and the likes. But there was also something that Chloe mentioned earlier, which was interesting, which is an interesting cultural dynamic to these kind of things. Chloe mentioned that, for example, in the UK, to be maybe a little bit stereotypical, people like to be polite. They will rather tell you that something's fine, something's nice, instead of giving you some good direct feedback about it. But speaking as someone who grew up in the Netherlands, we have a very different culture when it comes to feedback. The Dutch have a bit of a reputation of being almost rudely direct in their feedback. So it's less of an issue that if you ask a Dutch person, like, what did you think about it? They will most of the time tell you honestly what they thought about that, which helps in these kind of situations because, as all of you mentioned, um, to me personally, the worst thing in that moment is that it's just quiet and there's absolutely no response to it. That you feel like we just sat here for 3 to 4 hours, and the response now is silence, which is of course not bad because you sat there for 3 to 4 hours and people might just be exhaling and winding down from the session, but your head is already spinning. Your head is already thinking, but is there something wrong? Is there something? Are they getting ready to tell me how much they dislike this session? Did I not wrap it up properly? Was this not a cool cliffhanger? You get the gist. The list is already generating in your head that things are not good. And as Ren mentioned, that's where tools come in. Ren, you also mentioned that stars and wishes at one point were also new to you. That's something that you found out about.
Yeah, so until I really started to play in the AP space, uh, it wasn't really a thing that we used in like home groups or in any tables that I would play at in real life. Like this is also real life, but you know what I mean. So, but in the AP space, like a lot of the groups that I've played with have really like made it uh not quite a mission, but encourage that people do stars and wishes after because they know that there's this drop that happens after a game. And especially when you're trying to perform, you're giving it that little bit of extra for the camera, for the audience that you might not give if you were just 4 or 5 people sitting around a table. And so there's this empty space that comes after where you are in your feelings and you're worried about your performance as well as what did the others at the table think, was it good enough for the people that might be watching or potentially watch. And so just having stars and wishes after the fact, just be like, hey, you did a good job on this and I really enjoyed watching this happen. It helps kind of curb some of those negative thoughts that creep in after the end of every session. It doesn't matter how long it's been, every session. And so at least you can go away from the table thinking, okay, well, I might not have enjoyed how I did this, but I was told by a voice outside of myself that I did good things and I need to keep that close so I can keep doing this.
That's really interesting. Can I just add something to that real quick? Because this year I learned about sparkles. Have you all done sparkles? It is a nice thing you say about yourself. And it is all everyone's always like, I don't want to do this part. But I remember like I do it now at every table because it's just like I don't know, you're hearing all these nice things said about you, but then um we should also recognize that we probably most likely did really well on something. So an example of a sparkle I did recently was like I can't I can't say exactly what happened, but but I was basically like, I'm really glad I had a table of one-liners ready to go. And it was just a little something that added, and that was something I was proud of. So if you all haven't done sparkles, do it. It's nice.
I've
It's
definitely
nice.
done it quite a few times where it's like give a star to yourself and a star to someone else, which I think is a really good way to do it because then people aren't just watching other people, they're also analyzing themselves as well and thinking, actually, no, I did do a good job. And it's like we've been talking about when you're the one feeling the anxiety, but quite often, especially if there's silence at the table, a lot of other people around that table are likely feeling the same kinds of anxiety, especially if they've had like a role play heavy session or they are like a combat focused person and you've had like a big combat,
Yeah.
they want to feel that they've done a good job in their goals as well. And so forcing them to be like, tell yourself what you did well and forcing yourself to do that as well is a good way of having multiple positive voices, I suppose.
I really like this sparkles idea. I had not heard of it before, but I really like this angle of like also say something nice about yourself. Um, whether it's a separate sparkle or just when you're doing stars and wishes, also do a star for yourself. That's a really nice idea. I'm hosting this panel and I'm learning new stuff here. This is excellent. I'd like to add one more thing to using tools like stars and wishes to help you with this anxiety. My favorite part about stars and wishes, which for those of you unfamiliar with it, in stars and wishes, you have a structured way of giving feedback where first each player hands out a star for a scene or something that another player did, something that they liked and very much enjoyed. And after that, you go around the table and everyone voices a wish for the next session, the future of the campaign, something they would like to see happening in the game. And that wish part is, for me, speaking for me personally, my favorite part about it. Because one thing that I, especially when I run games, and I am usually the GM in games, I love running games. But one thing that really fills me with anxiety sometimes from running games is that I don't have a good grasp of like what do the players want to see in the game? What am I giving them? Do they enjoy the NPCs they meet? Do they find the plot interesting? And with the wishes part of Stars and Wishes, when I hear players honestly say like, wow, I would love to meet that one NPC again. I'm basically getting a checklist that I can use where I can say, like, oh, now I'm having structure for myself. And that reduces the amount of insecurity I have about the prep I do, where, like, of course, this NPC is going to show up again because my player said they want to see this NPC again. Perfect. That helps me, gives me structure, and reduces the amount of insecurity I feel about what I'm doing as well.
I think that also really helps from a like consent point of view as well. Because for me, one of the examples where I've had wishes in a game I ran and it went really well is that one of they had met this pirate captain and the player said, I would like the pirate captain to flirt with me. And that's something that I don't usually instigate in games just because it's something that requires consent. It's, you
Yeah.
need to have people's prior knowledge that you can't surprise someone with that. So I don't usually go for it unless it's someone's asking for it. And in this case, she'd literally gone, no, please flirt with me. And so I could go, great. And then I could go and flirt with her. Whereas otherwise I wouldn't have done that. So it's really good to have those wishes and those examples for players to tell you that not just I want to see this, but also it's okay for you to do this. You have my consent is really helpful too.
Absolutely. Well, this is, I'm glad that this conversation was sparked off of just a maybe too detailed and a good described scene about the awkwardness at the end of a session. And I'm just briefly glancing at my little flashcards, which are totally not Euphoria flyers that I use for this. But we have some other topics around anxiety that we also want to talk about, because anxiety can be, pardon my voice, anxiety can be experienced from different angles at the table, and can have different sources and thus different ways of dealing with it. Let's start with the kind of anxieties that you can feel as the GM or facilitator at a table. Um, are there, from all of you have at some point run or facilitated a game? Is that correct? I see nodding heads. So you all know that um, the kind of insecurity you can feel when preparing a session, running a session, and then after the session, um, as you keep pondering about what you just ran. We just briefly talked about that awkward silence at the end of a session, but as a GM, you also can already feel this anxiety while preparing a session, while preparing a game for people. Do any of you have examples of where you felt as you were prepping a session that you already started feeling yourself going, oh, I don't feel sure of this. Am I the right person to run this? Is this the right game to run? Are these is this table, specifically this table, going to like what I prepped for them? Is that something that's familiar to any of you?
Yeah. Yes. A lot. I I was so scared of my first ever game that I ran that I ended up prepping 13 pages. And I asked people, "Oh, what's normal?" And people were like, "A page." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." But I think that was just because I was scared. I had never world built before, and um did I like and it was also making sure that everyone got what they wanted, because it was going to be a long form thing that I did with my friends off stream. And I was just really worried that I wouldn't get every single thing they wanted in, but, like, I learned and realized later that, yeah, things change as we go, and people want different things, like, their characters do something really silly and then, like, change the entire path that they were on, and,
Mm.
so, yeah, now it's just really more about keeping a somewhat interesting outline for myself and just be ready to improvise as we go. But yeah, definitely like I would be so worried. Even today I'm doing something later this evening where I have never done a single thing like this. I've got 10 players. There's going to be eliminations every single session, and I'm nervous about navigating like people expecting to be in for longer periods of time. But everyone, the thing is, I've been clear every single time. Like, people are going to be eliminated every single week. Um, and just sort of like making sure that I've got all of the safety tools ready, that I've got a good enough outline that if I need to do just in case things, um, that those are also there because I need that structure. It's not a we're telling a story together. People are on a game show. So it's very much like it has to have that structure. Um, so yes, I don't know. But did I answer the question? Because I feel like it did. There's just a lot of going on stuff going on. I'm just like, yes, I felt that in both scenarios where I overplanned, but now I actually have to plan a very good outline.
I think for me, if I find prepping, the more of the anxiety comes from when I am running games that I maybe either haven't played or haven't played very often, because quite a lot of the time in my life, I am running games that I would like to play. So and I am also a very because I have ADHD and I'm very forgetful. If there's a lot of mechanics, as much as I enjoy playing a game with lots of mechanics, I hate running a game with lots of mechanics because I can't keep them all in my head and I can't remember them. So
Right.
that's always where my sort of anxiety comes in, especially if I'm running it for an actual play or for a podcast, because in those instances, people are going to be listening to it who haven't played the game, who maybe would like to learn the game. And so I'm there like, right, we've got to get these mechanics right. And so I'll have like checklists and things and little post-it notes and stuff, and then I'll ignore them because I'm focused on the game. Because I know that's how I work. That's where while I'm prepping, I'm just like, oh my god, I've got to get this right. I've got to get this right, and we end up with this kind of cycle of like, inevitably you won't get it right, but because I like doing improv and role playing so much, I know I'm also very good at like just fudging it a little bit and be like, "Ah, actually, that's all right, or we'll go back and change that, or whatever." Um, but I know that while I know I can do that in the moment, leading up to the moment, because that's not in the improv part, where the part where I am confident, the prep is the part I'm not confident on. So then I'm like sitting there at my computer, like, um, but yeah, I think I have dealt with that over the years personally by just simply prepping less, which I
Mm.
know won't work for everybody.
Yeah.
But that's the way that I work because I know that I'm having loads of notes is going to distract me during the game. I know that I work much better uh, just like freeform improving, basically. Um, so I guess the way to sort of deal with that sort of thing is identifying what you're not just what you're good at, but like what you're comfortable with and what you enjoy and how you enjoy running a game and just tailoring it to how you do it really.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think for me, a lot of the anxiety that I have with preparing for a game is usually because I have enjoyed this game. And so it's something I'm wanting to introduce to a new group of people and just be like, oh, this is a thing that I really enjoyed being a player in, and I want to recreate that experience. And then all of a sudden, there's just the weight of pressure of, will I be able to give them as good of an experience as I had being a player in this game, running this game for them? And it's all self-created, and you cannot impart love onto someone else through a game, but you try your best. And for me, I think along with what Chloe said, there's a limit to my attention. And so cannot prepare too many things, atmosphere and music and tables and art and too many things can bog down your mind with trying to go between this and that to help your players understand. And I think you have to have a bit of faith in the players themselves sometimes, that they will have the experience that they're going to have, and you can just try your best to make it a good one. But it's not just your responsibility to make the game go well. They also have to participate.
I think that's a really important point that you mentioned there, Ren. Like that, it's not you as the GM. It's not your responsibility alone to make sure that the game is fun for everyone. I think there's still sometimes this perception of the GM or facilitator in a group that you're the one who has to make sure that not just the game runs smoothly, but everyone is engaged, everyone is enjoying the game. No, no, no. That's a team effort. Everyone at the table has to bring some form of buy-in to make sure that what you're going to play is going to be fun. You can do your greatest prep as a GM. You can be as excited as you want about the game you're going to run. But if you end up playing it for a group of people who don't engage with it, who don't buy into it, it's not going to be a great time for everyone. And I think this is something that sooner or later, if you run games regularly, this is something that you're going to learn, because there's going to be moments where something just totally does not connect with the table you're running it for, or the people at your table are really not engaged with the game. And it can feel like it's your fault as a GM. And that can then feed into this negative feedback loop of like, oh, well, of course I knew this was not going to work. I was already during my prep thinking that this was all wrong. Why did I even try this? I think it's really important in those moments to also identify that it's everyone at that table who contributes to the game. And if you just see people not engaging with the game, the rules, the role play, you can't force them to make it work. And sometimes things just don't click. Sometimes you run a game for a group of people and it ends up that it's not the right game for them. Sometimes that happens and it sucks, but it's not your fault as a GM. These things happen, and it's something that it's good to learn and internalize at a certain point. There was one other. Oh yeah, go ahead, Chloe. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I think that that's where safety tools like having like a proper session zero and stuff can come in, because if you're setting out at the start those sort of expectations of like, look, like for example, I love horror games, which is weird because I hate horror films, but the people that I regularly play with don't really like horror so much. But having said that, I have run 1 or 2 horror games with them and it's gone quite well. But you have to have that sort of baseline of saying, look, this is a horror game. These are the things that it's going to include. These are the things that we're not going to include because someone doesn't like spiders, or we don't want to do eye gore or something like that. And everyone having those expectations, and even just there's a lot of view of like the GM being like the arbiter of all and responsible for everything, but that, like you say, that's absolutely not true. And it's like it's absolutely okay for you as a GM to say to players, you need to engage with this in this way for this genre, for this game to like make sense. And not in a pushy way necessarily, but for example, if you want to run a really dark, gritty, like serious game and your players just want to faff around and make silly jokes, then you need to tell them that's what you want to do. And then they might actually really enjoy that. But if you don't tell them, they're going to run around making silly jokes and make a game called a name of like Boaty McBoatface or something. So like if you've got those expectations to start with, even if it doesn't work out, you all know where to meet each other and you know how to like start that discovery process of whether you're all going to enjoy that sort of genre or that type of game or not.
it's once again safety tools that help you run a fun game and take some anxiety off of your shoulders.
I'm just
It's
communicating.
it's almost as if communication with each other is good. This is a very important insight for the TTRPG community. Thanks for that. Chloe, you also mentioned something very briefly earlier as a GM prep, that as a GM, you also have to deal with like unexpected changes during the session. No matter how you prep, no matter what your style is, if there's one thing that are part and parcel of TTRPGs, is that the plot can take unexpected turns. The players at the table will make unexpected decisions. And if you don't mind, I would like to briefly share a little anecdote from my own personal GM experience on my very first experience with that, which was about 20 years ago. I am a very young person, you have to know. So 20 years ago, I was maybe like, we don't have to know how old I was back then. I didn't have a beard yet, and there was no gray hair in my hair. But I was running a game for a group of friends of mine. And I thought at that point, I had already run a few games, and I thought at that point that I had perfected my prep for sessions. I thought the way I have it down now, I can prep for anything. These players, they cannot blindside me. I know where we're headed with this story, and this is going to be fun. I go into the session with my players, fun group, and it took about 20 minutes into the session when their decisions took us into a completely different direction. And that was the very first time as a GM where I had to ask my players if they could briefly give me like 20 minutes to rearrange my notes and change what I had planned for that session. I want to shout out those players from 20 years ago that they were like, yeah, cool, please do so. We understand that we threw this into a completely different direction. And after 20 minutes of me nervously rewriting things on my laptop, we got a cool plot going and everything. But I think this is also something, these unexpected changes, this possibility of your plot suddenly going into a different direction is something that for GMs can also be anxiety inducing. And I think one of the things, this is moving a bit more from the prep into actually running the game as a GM. One of the best things you can do if there's ever a big unexpected turn of events in a session, it's totally cool to ask your table if they can give you a moment to just figure out where to take this. I have done this over the years a few times. I just asked my table like, hey, you got to give me 10 minutes. Can we briefly take a break, grab some drinks? I need to reconfigure a few things. And so far, I never had a negative response to that. I think in a way, players also feel like a little bit rewarded when you hit them with that, because they know like, oh, we really changed the plans of the GM here. Let's see where we're heading. But if it's all done in good spirit and everyone wants to have a fun time at the table, taking just a few minutes to reconfigure and redirecting where to go, that can already be so relieving and fun for everyone at the table and make your job a lot easier.
If anyone wants to practice that particular skill, there is a game called You Awaken in a Strange Place, where literally it's so great. You basically just world build together for a bit, and then literally baked in the game, the GM has 5 minutes away from the table to just write down just a few little like action sequences or like a basic plot of like, here's what we're going to do. It's completely improvised like games. It's like designed for one shots. And I found running that game really helpful because it forces you to go, you can't overthink this. You've got 5 minutes only. You've just got to write down what comes into your head. And then you end up with some really wild stuff. But it's a good way of practicing that kind of skill of rewriting quickly and also just getting used to it and like engaging with it in a expected and fun context rather than the kind of unexpected, like, oh, what am I going to do context. Yeah, it just popped into my head while you're saying it. I was like, oh my God, this game.
So everyone viewing this, you got a homework assignment. You're going to play You Awaken a Strange Place and practice your improv skills so that you feel more comfortable when you have to improv as the GM at the table. Usually, however, it's not just the GM at a table, it's also other players. And as a player, you can also feel insecure and anxious about what's happening at the table, what's happening in a session. As much as anyone here has been a player, I assume, has been a GM, I assume all of you have also been players in games. You have all been on the other side of the metaphorical GM screen. I don't know if people even use GM screens these days anymore, but who knows? Has there been for you, when you were in the seat of a player, what's like the things that are the most anxiety inducing for you as players?
Oh my god, okay, so, um,
Here we go.
so, and less, but so starting with performance, it is things like, oh, is my role play good and interesting? Are they listening to me because they're invested or being nice? Um, it's little things, and again, it depends on the kind of game that you're playing. Some games are more geared towards roleplay than others. Each has their own facets, and if you're in a roleplay heavy game, sometimes you end up incidentally comparing yourself to the other players and how they're doing. You'll just be listening to someone like do a little bit of monologue and be like, oh wow, that was incredible. And I have to go next. Great. And it if you afterwards, when you speak, because you would talk to players afterwards, they'd be like, oh no, yours was great. Like I was just and you there's a little kernel of doubt. There's a little kernel of disbelief that you cannot allow to blossom into anything more, because you have to take people at face value when they say that what you did they really enjoyed. Um, but also sometimes, and again, this goes back to check-ins. Sometimes when you come to a new table and you don't know anyone there, you don't know what their thought patterns are like. And I made Darcy laugh earlier. Hi, Darcy. But sometimes you have to think about, particularly when you're sitting down at like a table at a con or something, are these people on the same wavelength as me in terms of beliefs
Yeah.
and things about race and gender and sexuality, all of these things? Because it is very likely that you might not it might not come up at all in the game, but someone might make an offhand comment or something, and all of a sudden it's the pressure's on you. Do I say something about this? Do I remove myself? Is it worth it in this moment to bring this up and potentially stop this game for whatever reason? And it's things like that that kind of, for me, I sort of narrowed the scope of when and where I play, just to avoid coming across certain circumstances. Some people might not mind, but for me, I don't enjoy confrontation that much. So if we can take routes to avoid potentials of confrontation, then I will take those routes on a motorbike, speeding.
I can I add something to that? Just on the I also am someone that doesn't like confrontation, but I feel like when because I deal with stuff like that as well, but one of the things I always make sure to include, because I don't see it on many lines and mail sheets, is fat phobia. So like I'll just be sure to write that, and then like again, I don't want to be sitting there and then someone says like a fat joke and I'm like, I'm right here. And then it's the same people that always be like, "You're not fat, you're beautiful." But that's like a whole other thing, and I will talk
Mm,
about that at another
mhm.
time. Um, both, thank you. But speaking of confrontation, there was you have to have trust within the group. Like it is a thing that you must do. It is a must, especially well, actually both AP and home games. But I was recently doing an interview in character with some other castmates, and one of my other fellow castmates and I had a falling out. No, sorry, our characters had a falling out, not the castmates. Thank you. I don't know. No, I would not be airing stuff like that unless. Um, but they called my character a girl. Like she's a smart girl, and I said, "Woman." And then it was just like, I'm gonna I'm gonna tell you right now. If we're gonna be fighting, I'm gonna make sure that you know that you're saying something wrong. But like again, confrontation sucks. I've had to do it, and I don't like it. Like if I felt uncomfortable, um, like in a scene, I'll make sure later on to tell something, unless I feel like it was incredibly outside of my boundaries. I how am I wording this? If I felt like in the moment it was immediately crossing my boundaries and it wasn't like, what is a small thing? Like I know it's subjective, but I'll just wait until after to say something unless it was like absolutely not something that like, like racism, we would stop it right there. um but if it's just like a small remark that maybe could be, handled a little bit later, then I would wait. But confrontation sucks and I hate it. But I'll do it.
Yeah, sometimes it is like just necessary to address things, even if it's not even like a confrontation. Like I had my very first game I ever played, which of course was D&D because it's for everyone. But uh, it's not to the same level. But me and who is now like my best friend, but wasn't at the time. I knew him, but we didn't really know each other that well. And our characters didn't really get on, and it made perfect sense. They were very different characters, and like he was very chaotic and jokey, and my character was quite serious and like, no, we have to do this thing. And so they just didn't get on for a long time in the campaign, and both of us individually for a very long time sat there with this little niggling doubt of like, does this person hate me? Does the real person just hate me? Because we didn't really know each other at the time, and we sat there for like literal months, both of us kind of in this weird position and not telling the other person. And then eventually, when we were close enough to actually to say, "I thought you hated me," and they're like, "Yeah, I thought you hated me," and we're like, "No," and then actually, it's like completely fine. So I think it's just having that confidence sometimes to just to sort of say, "Hey, by the way, we're having this in character argument, but I don't hate you. I don't feel that way," because it's a completely normal human thing to feel. And although we all intellectually know that these are the characters having an argument, sometimes that sort of bleed and that emotion can sort of spill out into real life as well. And yeah, I've been having a couple of little discussions and things with my players quite recently, and I wrote so many notes, and then I looked at my notes, and it all boiled down to just talk to each other, and talk to me, like, and I think that's yeah. I'm rambling now, but talk to each other. It solves practically everything.
I think one thing that also Ren briefly mentioned there is we're talking also about a kind of anxiety that stems from just your identity that you bring to your table, be that your gender identity, be that if you're a person of color, be that your sexual identity, and basically also the anxiety coming from, will I be safe at this table? Um, is there any advice on that front that any of you can share if we have people who feel that kind of anxiety every time they join a new table or every time they come into a session? Is there any advice that you can share on that front?
I think what Ren said about just curating like where you're playing games is something that I should preface, no one should have to do. We
No.
shouldn't have to do this, but it is just very helpful. Like so I generally don't apply to games or APs now unless it is I know some people in the community and they can vouch for it, and I know that that community or that channel or whatever is going to have robust safety tools at the end of the day and is going to be welcoming and stuff. Because I've had nothing major, but a couple of incidents where I have like applied for something or I've played at a table and it's been like, okay, this was not what I expected. I'm about out now. Um, and so yeah, it's not a thing that should be needing to be done, but it is very helpful to have that confidence going in of like, I know that this is a community that like Euphoria, that will look after me. And if something does go wrong, I know that there's safety nets and things and that sort of stuff.
I will agree with that wholeheartedly. I think as much as it sucks that we can't just jump in and not every table is going to be for us, I guess. So I agree with finding your people, with finding the right people who understand you, who have share the same values as you. And I was actually just talking to a friend about this yesterday because the more and more I've tried to jump into doing things, aside from the people at Euphoria, I will say, if you ask me to do anything, I will do anything with you all. But like, it's just like the more and more I do stuff, the more I'm like, okay, these are the type of people, or not people, but like settings and vibes I don't really necessarily want to be a part of. Um, so finding the right groups is really important because I'm like I have black cat energy. Surprise. Um, but I'm very much just like, I would like to be by myself. And maybe if I warm up to you, then maybe we'll do something together. But then like as soon as I'm in, I'm in. Like it's just very much like I like my space. And I think that surprises people. But yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with finding the right groups. And if you ever feel like something isn't right, it is okay to step away and not be around the vibes that you are not. I can't think of a word other than vibing with.
And I think a bit of it is if the spaces that you're playing in aren't doing it, sometimes you have to take it upon yourself to maybe like I'm not saying go and internet stalk people, but maybe just do a little bit of vetting and checking like who you might be playing with. Um because it's okay to be wrong. It's okay to make a mistake or find something out later that you weren't aware of. And then it's up to you what you do with that information. So you don't have to feel like, oh God, I'm such an idiot. Why did I the the priority is maintaining your peace and your safety
Yeah.
in terms of certain situations, and if you make a mistake, it's just you can remove yourself from that situation at any time, and just keep yourself safe, not for the sake of others do you have to be polite all the time.
Exactly. And I also want to make it very clear, if you find yourself to be a person who has a problem with someone at your table just because of who they are and who they want to be, buddy, you got some soul searching to do. And you might want to see if there's some personal growth for you as well. Because I think that at a amazing TTRPG table, everyone is welcome. We're all in here to tell stories together. And if you have issues with what someone wants to be, what someone is, who someone is, then there's still character development waiting for you, friend. And I hope you can get to that.
Sometimes people as well do make genuine mistakes, but it's about them then being willing to listen and being like, oh, I did make that mistake, let's try and not
Yeah.
make that in the future, so like I think none of us are saying like for example, I play a lot of non-binary characters. Hello, I'm non-binary. And so quite often they get misgendered or I get misgendered. It happens.
Mhm.
Like most people don't mean it, or it's a one-off. But if they're not reminded of actually my character uses they them pronouns, they're going to keep doing it, and they might not notice. So I think
Yeah.
I had a point and I've gone off on a tangent. But yeah, I think it's bringing it all back full circle of like when you have that safety net and you have the community that's like welcoming like that,
Yeah.
even if there are mistakes and stuff like that, that it gives you the confidence to jump in and say those things and be like, oh, by the way, and that people are either going to respond kindly and they're going to try and improve and not make mistakes in the future, or everyone's going to be like, okay, bye, and kick them out. So if you're not going to do that, like we're not going to have you. And
there's a difference. There's a difference between like making an honest mistake because you're not because you're still meeting people. You also need to maybe you're also personally learning about these things, and that's the learning progress. And it's fine to make like mistakes in how to use the correct pronouns or how to interact with someone. But there's a difference in making an honest mistake and learning from it, and starting to develop a pattern of just not respecting someone's boundaries and someone's identity at the table. I think it's good to give grace to people who are still learning and showing that they're open to people at the table. But if someone has this pattern of just not respecting who you are, respecting who you want to be, your identity, that's a completely different affair.
also, I have one more thing on this topic. Sorry.
Please.
Well, it's also not completely on people of marginalized identities to be doing that. I think is a very important point to make. Is that if you are someone like me, I'm white. I have privilege because I'm white. If you are someone that has a privilege in whatever format that is, then you have a responsibility also to pick up on those things and be like, oh hey, please don't misgender X person's PC and those sorts of things as
Absolutely.
well. And that's very incredibly helpful to and to people's anxiety as well, because it can be a lot for someone of a marginalized identity to feel like, oh, I have to be on it all the time and make sure that people aren't misgendering people or aren't doing things like and this sort of thing. And if everybody around you is also doing that, it kind of shoulders the load.
Exactly. Be an ally, people.
Yeah.
Help your friends at the table and contribute to making it fun for everyone at the table. Well, I got one more anxiety-inducing topic I want to briefly cover. And
Another
this is
realistic role play scenario.
Oh, no, not that. It's not that bad. I learned from my mistakes. No, I actually have one more topic though, which came up in our pre-conversation about this panel. And it's actually a bit of anxiety about safety tools. This is an interesting one. We mentioned safety tools a few times. And one form of anxiety that some of us might experience is the anxiety about safety tools like lines and veils, the topics that you indicate as the things that might be lines or veils for you, but also topics that you indicate enthusiastic consent for. And the anxiety coming from like, how will the rest of the table respond to that? How's your experiences with that and dealing with anxiety induced by a tool that is helping you to be safe at the table, and yet you feel unsure and anxious about it?
Well, um, I, for a while, was very much like, I think about not just myself, but like if my husband was gonna watch something, or if like family and friends who I know are like scared of certain things are going to be watching, I'm like, all right, cool. Let me just make sure that I'm also thinking about other people like as well. So I'm like blocking off and making reds for things that may not be necessarily mine. But then I was wondering, like, is that too much? No, because if I also don't want to subject other players that might have those, I know I brought up watching, but sometimes my husband is in the game. I'm like, I know that he wouldn't like this. I want to be sure that this topic isn't there, so I'll also include it in mine. Um, but like, I remember one time, uh, it was a table I was new to, I think, and I don't know the people, so my lines and veils sheet will look different depending on the topic and depending on the group. Because if I don't know you, then I want to make sure these topics aren't there. But one time I was just very nervous about this, and I just remember hearing all of my reds being read, and it didn't sound like anything new was being added to the list. And I was like, but I feel like after some time, I was just like, you know what? If I'm wanting to feel safe at this game, then why should I be worried about it? Um, and I just keep telling myself in a world full of greens, be a red. And I guess and not a red flag in real life. I just mean, look, if you've got the reds, keep them red. Don't sacrifice your feelings because you don't want to talk about like because you want other people to feel comfortable. It's just not a comfy feeling. I'm rambling. I'm so sorry. I have a lot of
No
thoughts
worries.
about this.
No worries. We're yappers here. It's fine.
Yeah, you've described situation, and I'm like, yep, I've been there, been that in that exact situation. Yes, but I think content warnings are also very helpful there as well. It goes back to the setting expectations, because what you don't want to happen is if a GM to have planned out a whole thing and then look at the lines of veils and go, oh, damn, I have to redo the whole thing. So if you've got those things that start like, hey, everyone, this game includes X, Y, and Z. If you're not okay with that, come talk to me. We'll figure it out. Or maybe you have to step away for this particular game. Maybe it's not for you, you know. I think that can like help from a GM standpoint. But yeah, it's definitely like so this, the lines and the veils and safety tools, like they are there for safety. And I think anyone, if you're feeling that you should be compromising your safety for other people's fun, like that's not, they're not equal in my mind. I mean, fun is great, but everyone can have a teeny tiny less fun so that you can have a lot more safety. Like they're not equal at all.
I mean, I think there might be worries about perhaps if you're more GM than a player, but if you no, actually sometimes a player as well. Strike that. If you forget someone's line or veil and you say something, and then you realize after the fact, or as a GM, you might them into a scenario, um, and depending on the play group that you're with, there might be more or less things marked off as please don't include this, or we can include this, but you need to talk to me about it first. And if it's one of those, then again, it's just a communication thing, I think, where things might have to stop or slow down for a while, and you might not want to ruin the momentum of whatever you have going on, but it's worthwhile to take that moment to ensure that that player is comfortable, uh, because if the onus is on them to bring it up again, sometimes they might not in that moment and just be left in this discomfort, and then they might be less willing to engage or less able to engage with some other aspects of the storyline because they're still thinking about this thing that was brought up. And then that's their anxiety, and now we've looped back around again into a different anxiety.
It's
Um,
almost like anxious thoughts are a whole big loop.
yeah. So I think it's just being willing to use the safety tools and then being comfortable with them, like going over them. It might seem a bit much to like look at them every session, but it is important perhaps just to like get it in your head, because a lot of these tools are rolling as well. So something might come up where someone has changed something, a circumstance has come up in their life, and they'll be like, I actually don't want to see this in the fantasy, it's in my reality now. And if they could not bridge, that would be great. And so we do have to kind of, for the sake of everyone, keep account of it. And again, it's fine to mess up in a moment if you just take the time to, you know, be cognizant of the fact that I messed up. I'm so sorry. Let's just take a moment. What do you need? What do you need to do? And just take it from there.
I think that's very important what you said as well about people, like things change and that stuff comes up in people's lives. Like I had an example where something major happened in one of my players' lives, and so I had to change some things around. And I think something that I hadn't realized until later on when it like came to the fore was I had made sure to there were particular NPCs that like he didn't want really involved or harmed in any way. And I had made sure to kind of like place them in like a safe place. And so when he then learned that they were in that safe place and that narratively that meant nothing could happen to them, he knew I wasn't going to do anything to them, but like narratively, they also nothing would happen. I could physically see the like relief leave his body. And so I think it's sometimes you don't realize, even if you've said, okay, we're not going near here, when you're inside the game and you're in that role play and in the narrative, you're trying to embody this character, and that character doesn't know that those NPCs are safe. Um, and so yeah, I just something that I learned very recently, that also incorporating it into the plot, and as Jen is rightly saying, plot armor, is really, really important for easing those anxieties, like, and not letting them bleed from character into player anxieties as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think this is all really important, and I completely agree with what has been said about how to use these safety tools and also be comfortable with the choices you make on these safety tools. Never limit your own safety just because you think it will be more fun for others, and also be open to change your safety tools, change whatever your lines and veils are whenever they come up. That is absolutely the right thing to do. I think we are slowly heading to the end of our lovely conversation here about anxiety. We've covered a lot of ground in approximately an hour of talking, all different flavors of anxiety and, as might commonly be known as, sometimes imposter syndrome. I, for one, have learned a lot from all of you. So thank you all very much for joining here today. We are about to head out for this panel, this panel for EUphoriaCon, which is brought to you by EUphoria, a community dedicated to the European TTRPG scene. Support and follow EUphoria on all their socials listed below. Subscribe and support us on Patreon. Join our Discord and just be a part of Euphoria. EuphoriaCon is made possible by an amazing team right here, based in Europe and the UK. And there's a lot of more great panels planned today and tomorrow for EuphoriaCon. There's a lot of amazing community games. Join us on the Discord, follow on the socials, and if you want to financially support this team, and if you can and are willing, you definitely should help them out on the Patreon. Before we head out, let's go a brief round around our panelists. Remind everyone briefly of who you are, and shout out any kind of projects you want to boost here. Plug yourself. Give yourself a sparkle also. And I'm just going to start with Ren this time. Ren, who are you? Where can we find you? What do we do? Tell us about you.
I'm Ren. I go by Maskren on the internet. You can find me on Blue Sky and TikTok at Maskren. I do occasional cosplays, and I'm floating around the TTRPG space. Currently, you can see me on an upcoming show on a one shot on Euphoria for Nibiru. And I'm also on the Bad Spot channel a lot of the times. We are playing The Lands Remaining, which is an elegiac. I can say this word, I swear. Elegiac fantasy in the realm of Dark Souls and Elden Ring. It's a game that technically does not exist yet, but perhaps it will soon.
Amazing. Glad to have had you here. Gloria, tell us about yourself. Where can we find you? What's your projects? Share it with us.
Gloria, Glow Pinksta Charm Party. That's where you can find me almost everywhere. I was writing a list of all the things I'm doing, and I'm gonna try to be real quick about it. So, not only am I in the TTRPG space, but I also stream. I'm a gamer, and I'm going through all of the Resident Evil games. I was too scared to play them, and then I made myself do it because I had played Alien Isolation, which is my favorite game of all time. And I was like, no, maybe eventually I can try Resident Evil. And I am. And I'm in love with Leon. And I'm married, by the way. I'm in love with Leon. Resident Evil 9 specifically. But come hang out with me Monday through Thursdays at what time do I start streaming? 7 p.m. BST. And then coming out on Charm Party, which is my TTRPG branch of my life. I've got an all plus size table of glitter hearts coming out, and it's really cute and chaotic and fun. And I can't wait for that to come out. I'm also the project manager on a Kickstarter called Safe Mode Disabled, which hit 100% in 20 hours, and I'm really proud about it.
Whoop, whoop.
and it's still going. So if you're interested in a video game isekai type system, also run by Powered by the Apocalypse, please check out the Safe Mode Disabled Kickstarter. And at the end of May, we are doing a Daggerheart one shot. We're calling it Eververse. And imagine all of the cheesy action movies that you've ever loved in a game. It is so good. We go through Transformers to Alien, to also what are the other things that we did? There was like 15 floors, and those are the only two I can name. But it was, oh, and also Resident Evil was a part of it, and I'm really excited. I play a character called Bleon H. Krenedy. Gee, I wonder. But anyway, that's coming out at the end of May, and I'm really excited about it. And that's where you can find me this month.
Amazing. Right there with you with the love for Leon, because hot damn, hello, good sir. Chloe, where can we find you and what are you up to? Tell us all about it.
Yeah, hi, I'm Chloe or Chloe. I go by Chloe with the Flow pretty much everywhere on the internet. I'm mostly on Blue Sky these days. I do a bunch of different things. I'm a podcaster mainly. I do other actual plays in the TTRPG space. I am a composer, and I am I was a singer and actor. I don't really do so much of that anymore. But if you need one, I do some VO sometimes. But yes, I'm mostly doing Deck of Many Aces, which is the only actual play podcast made with actual asexuals and aromantics. And we are, I would estimate, maybe 3 episodes away, 2 or 3 episodes away from the end of a 5-year campaign. That was not meant to be that long, but here we are. And so, yeah, we're coming to the end of an era. I write all of the music for that. It's all on streaming platforms. It's going to be on Bandcamp very soon. So if you would like to buy it, you can. I'm also on RWD, a podcast that showcases indie TTRPG systems, and our current campaign is Scum and Villainy, which is, if you don't know, it's a Forged in the Dark Star Wars with the serial numbers filed off. It's very fun. And I'm doing a couple of other things coming up in May on Saturdays on the transmissions. I will be in Heartforged Siege, which is a D&D game where we're kind of trapped in a dwarven city under siege. And I play a very ADHD coded, very fast monk trying not to think about their anxiety. So it's quite pertinent. And that's like, I can't remember how many episodes it was, 4 or 5 episodes long, something like that. And you can also find me on the Theatre Macabre YouTube channel. In the summer, we'll be releasing an Imperium Maledictum game, which was very silly, and we were very, very bad at our jobs. So it was a lot of fun. But they're all pre-recorded. They're all coming out soon. I'm also be over on Who Hurt You in a couple of things that have yet to be announced. So they're mysterious. And that's me at the moment, I believe. There's always something
Amazing.
I've forgotten. You can find it on Blue Sky.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Chloe. And I've been your host for this panel, Markus, known online as the Chindividual. You can find me on the socials by that name. And you can also find me on my YouTube channel called the Chindividual, where I create TTRPG videos. I have a bit of a focus on Pathfinder, which is really like my obsession right now in the TTRPG world. But there's also other TTRPG related videos there. So if you like to put on something nice in the background where I talk to you about TTRPG lore for Pathfinder or something else, go over there. I swear I can talk for a long time there, and maybe you find my voice maybe soothing or something. Who knows? You can check out my content over there as well. I also currently feature alongside a complete amazing table at the Vampire the Masquerade game here called Finsterness on EUphoria. The first 2 episodes are currently already on the YouTube channel if you want to watch them back. And the final 2 episodes are going to air coming Wednesday and the Wednesday after that. So if you like some multilingual vampire action in deep, dark caves and with very sexy characters, you should check out 3-City Revamp Finsterness. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for this panel. Thanks everyone for watching this. Thank you to the organization of EUphoria and EUphoriaCon. And please go check out all the other amazing panels that are waiting for you here today. Take care, stay safe, and bye-bye.